Welcome friends, it is I, your LostScarf, and it's time for the Overwatch Hero Guide to Pharah. That's right, the Rocket Girl's here. Time to talk about her. She's really good at doing a lot of work, but she can also get hurt a lot as well. She's got a lot of vulnerabilities about her, but also a lot of strengths about her as well. You just gotta be smart about what you're doing with her, and you should be able to pull off a lot of work with her. Now, as always, we're going to go over who she is, her abilities, just talking about how you can do combat with her, some mode duty stuff about her, and of course tips and tricks. Just a lot of things to think about with Pharah so you have a good idea what you should be doing to play her, and then you might do well with her. As always, this is more geared towards the beginners, but for expert and advanced players, if there's anything here you learn from it, great, that's good. Now, if there's anything here you feel is missing, say so in the comments. Give the viewers more they can learn from. That's always important for everybody. That's just a good thing to do. So, let's get going. So who is Pharah? Well, her real name is Pharah Amari. She's age 32. Her mother was Overwatch's sniper, Anna. She grew up believing she would one day become a member of Overwatch as well. She joined the Egyptian army and proved to be a great soldier and leader there. Unfortunately, Overwatch disbanded before she had the chance to join. She left the military and joined the Helix Security International group, and it was there that she gained her signature armor and weaponry. She now protects a top-secret AI installation while having dreams of fighting the good fight when needed. Now, the thing about Pharah is she's an offensive hero. They're very straightforward. You just deal a lot of damage and you kill the enemy. The question is how you do it. She has the ability to just blast the enemies to bits. She can push them around using her concussive blast. She dodges through the sky, and she destroys everything with justice. Pharah's abilities. First up, gotta talk about the rockets. Rocket launcher, 120 damage on direct hits, does less damage with splash, and it has a slight knockback on enemies. Now, the rockets fly pretty slow, so you gotta make sure you lead your shots. Now, her alternate fire and spacebar does hover, so it allows you to use some fuel to hover in the air. This is good for just dodging and staying in the air to do your shots. It's just a useful thing for you to just be in the air and do your work. Another one is Jump Jet. This is your shift. So Jump Jet, what it does is it jumps you up 20 meters into the air, great for air superiority, and escaping into the open away from your enemy. Of course, it puts you in the open, so you gotta be smart about what you're doing when you're up there. Her E ability is called Concussive Blast. This is a ranged knockback that can be used to push you and the enemies into better or worse situations. This is great for fall kills. If the enemy's next to you, and they're gonna mess you up, like maybe it's a Reinhardt or just someone who can hurt you really bad up close, just use the Concussive Blast on them, pushes you and them away from each other, and you might be able to get away and do some more work, or just start shooting at them from right there to get some kills. Or maybe you got the enemies as a group somewhere, you put the bomb between them, and boom, it just moves everyone, scatters them around, and helps your teammates just have a better situation for them. There's just a lot you can do with that Concussive Blast when you think about it. And lastly is her ultimate, Barrage. This is justice raining from above. She fires 30 rockets per second over 3 seconds, while stationary. Each rocket does 40 damage, so it's good for just wiping enemy teams. It will destroy shields, but it does leave you vulnerable to getting killed, so you have to be very smart about when you use it. Pharah in combat. Now, most of the offensive heroes are extremely straightforward, and Pharah is no exception. You kill the enemy team with damage, that's what you do. You just keep shooting them till they die. But what's important about Pharah is, because she has air superiority, she can hit them from an angle no one else can. She also can hit from the sides, so you can also flank with her, and get behind the enemy, and do work from there as well. She has access to the entire map of the game. You should use that to your advantage. What's important with Pharah is learning to land your shots, so being very accurate with her, learning to dodge with her, that's also important, and learning map awareness, as said before. If you know all the pockets of the game, if you know where to shoot from, if you know where to just get a good angle on the enemy or where to knock them back from, you can do so much work in this game, it is crazy. Pharah has the ability to just knock an enemy team in every direction. All 6 of them clumped up together, hit them in the right spot, they all scatter. You got Reinhardt with a healer, knock them away from each other. Mercy will have to fly back to him, but in that meantime, he's off somewhere else. You can take out Mercy because she's not covered anymore, or just take out his other teammates that he's probably shielding. This is something Pharah can do. She can separate a team, put them in a bad spot. Or in a place with fall death, she can just kill people pretty well with that as well. You just gotta be very smart about how you use that Concussive Blast. And that's not everything she can do, of course. There's also her rockets, and if you know how to use your rockets correctly, you can knock your enemies into predictive patterns so that you can just shoot them as they're coming at you or trying to get away. Always think about where you're going to shoot with Pharah's rockets, and think about where the enemy's going, predict them well enough, and you will kill people outright all day, every day. Now when it comes to Barrage, you just have to be smart about it. There's certain enemies in this game who will not let you do anything with that ultimate, and there's other enemies in the game who are very vulnerable to it. It just really depends what's happening. Usually though, because you're vulnerable when you're using that ultimate, you want your teammates to set up the enemy team first or distract them so that they don't see justice coming from behind them or from the side or from above. Just taking them out when they don't see it coming is a very useful thing to do. Mode duties of Pharah. Now in Capture, Hybrid, and Payload on Attack, with Pharah, your job, kill the other team. That's really what you do, kill the enemy team. You're going to that point, you're attacking from the front, you're attacking from the flanks if you can. Sneak by the enemy team to the sides if you're able to do it. Attack them from the sides, attack them from the back, capture the point, shoot from the sky, shoot from anywhere you can, cause the enemy team some grief, or to take the point outright. Some teams will be so just tunnel vision, they don't see you and you just take the point behind them. It is hilarious when you do that. Now, if the enemy does respond, they're defending from the point, bounce them around with your concussive blast to scatter them away from each other so your team has an easier time killing them. Also, because you're shooting from a different angle, they got two different places to worry about getting shot from. That should split them up to get them killed. Just split the enemy's attention and get them killed. That's what you're trying to do there when you're Pharah on attack. Now, after you take the point, second point, same idea. But if you're doing payload, well then you're not really on the payload ever. You're really shooting either away from the payload or just flank the enemy team before they even get there. You're killing them away from the payload, making sure they never get there, distracting them with the concussive blast, scattering them for your team to get kills, and that's really all you're doing. Now, when it comes to barrage, the best thing you can do is sneak up on the enemy and try to use it from them on behind or from the sides. Just try to make that ultimate useful. If you do it straightforward and they see it, they're just going to kill you or they're just going to block it. You need to be sneaky with that ultimate, unless you have a teammate that can set up for you. That's really what you got to think about. Now, on defense, this is a little bit different. Not really. You're killing everything again, and you're attacking from every angle once again, but you're defending the point this time. You're knocking them away from your point, you're shooting them when they get on the point, you're killing them to make sure they can't do anything to your point, if possible, and your teammates. Just the same strategy. Scatter the enemy, distract them so they have two different fronts, get them killed, and that's what you do. And on payload, same thing. You're bouncing them off the payload instead. You're shooting them while they're on the payload. It's a bit easier for defense Pharah, because she knows where she's shooting, at the payload, or enemies near the payload. Just get them off of it. You can also barrage the payload. Just make sure that ultimate is useful as always. Now, when it comes to control, it's really a very simple thing as well. Kill the other team. Now, the nice thing about control maps is there's a lot of fall deaths in that. So you can use your concussive blast. If used smartly, you can kill the enemy team. You can kill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6. When this match starts, there's certain spots on the map which the enemy goes to. You can push them off and kill them all. I've seen it done before. It is hilarious and amazing. But that's really just your opening shot. After that, you're just shooting the enemy team to get them killed, blasting them around to kill them by scatter or by fall death, and just stuff like that. And you're just trying to take the point. Now, if you have the point, you just fight away from the point to kill the enemy team, knock them away from your point, there you go. Now, if you're trying to take the point, you're just shooting the point, killing them off the point, and there you go as well. It's very straightforward for Pharah. Kill the other team, scatter them, break them with justice, win the game. Tips and tricks for Pharah. And the first ones might be obvious to you, but some people might not realize these. So the first one, tapping space or alt fire for hover to stay in the sky longer. The thing is, if you just hold it a little too long, then you're kind of just wasting the fuel. Just tap it a little bit, learn the timing on tapping, and you can stay on the sky for a good amount of time, but just dodging and striking pretty well. Another one is jump jet to get out of a bad situation. Like when you're playing a lot of heroes, if an ult happens, you're kind of dead. That's just going to happen there. But because Pharah's got that jump jet that can just get her into the sky really fast, that can be good for getting out of a bad situation, or just giving you air superiority as always to just do some work before you get killed if they really got a beat on you. Another obvious one, lead your shots for the rocket shots because they're so slow, but also just predicting where the enemy is going. Like if you know where the enemy is going, you can do some pretty good shots on them. Just paying attention to how slow your shots are, just an important thing to keep in mind. And another one is aim for the ground and walls against agile enemies. If you got an enemy that you just cannot get a direct hit on, like maybe a Tracer or a Genji, like they're just moving around a little too much, like Lucio as well, shoot the walls they're next to. Shoot the ground they're standing on. Shoot them in places where you know you can hit them. Direct hits, of course, are great for damage, but if you at least hit them in some splash, you'll at least get a kill, most likely with just enough damage, and you can just melee them. That's something you can do. If you're only going for direct hits and you miss, well, nothing's going to happen. You hit the ground at least, do a little of a splash damage, gives you a better chance of getting a kill. Now, Concussive Blast has a couple tips to it. We'll talk about the main, most important ones. The first one's got to be, you can use knockback from the Concussive Blast to knock you away from a bad situation, knock the enemies away from you. Just something bad's happening, use that immediately right there on the ground, and just scatters things that are happening. The other one's got to do with scattering the enemy. Use it on the enemy when they're bunched up, scatter them around, keep the healers away from their teammates, keep the shield away from the teammates, or just scatter the enemy so they're easier to kill. Just things like that, something to consider. And here's the most important one though. Learn the map and angles for great Concussive Blast. If you understand the map, and like fall deaths or just knocking the enemy into corridors and stuff like that, and where you need to shoot to do that, you can put the enemies in so many bad situations, it is amazing. Pharah can do a lot of work for her team once she learns how to do a good Concussive Blast. And last ones have to do with Barrage. Barrage breaks through shields like Reinhardt and Winston shields, but it does take a minute, which does make you vulnerable. Another is just do not ultimate on D.Va or Genji unless their abilities are down. Defense Matrix will eat your rockets and Genji will knock your rockets back at you. If those abilities are down, just go for it and do the ult, you'll probably get some kills. And lastly, pay attention to what enemies are around before you barrage. It leaves you vulnerable after all. Sniper gets at you, that's not so good. So you want to make sure the enemies are in the right place when you do your ultimate, or else you're just going to waste it. In conclusion, Pharah's a great damage-dealing flanker in the game, but she has a lot of counters if you aren't careful. Strong accuracy, strong dodge, and map awareness will make you a very powerful force, but it's also important to just learn how to deal with the enemies that can counter you. It'll help you in the long run. And of course, just keep flanking the enemy, keep hitting them from the back, knowing where to just use your ultimate, and mastering that concussive blast. If you master concussive blast as well, you're going to do a lot of work for your team, and you're going to definitely make victory happen if you're doing it right. Now, as always, it is important to share these guides. The more people learn how to do different heroes and how to play them and how to counter them, the better it is for everybody, because you just have more knowledge of the game. The more knowledge, the better, because then you'll have better opponents, better teammates, and just better play yourself, and that's just great for everybody. Now, next guide's going to be Hanzo, one of 3 snipers, one of 2 sniper defenders, and he can do a good amount of work. He can give his team awareness, he can do some good damage with Scatter Arrow, and his arrows do have a good forgiveness to them as well, so he can do a lot of damage and be a good useful hero to his team, so he'll be the next guide coming up. So there you go, that right there is the guide I had fun making. I hope you had fun watching it, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.